Welcome back. All right, so we're going to continue this look at all 32 teams where they are at the quarter century mark. And Nashville's an interesting case to get to. So I talked earlier today about Minnesota. Minnesota built on defense and goaltending. I bring you Nashville, one of the teams that is best known for defense and goaltending and creating some of the best defensemen in NHL history via the draft or via development. But either way, they bring these defensemen in. They're excellent, and the fact that the leading scorer in this franchise's history coming into this year is a defenseman, not surprised, not even a little bit. So, in terms of the power rankings I did for the quarter century, Nashville came in 10th in the regular season. So, good regular season team. Playoffs, that power rankings, they were 23rd. They were boosted up a little bit by the Stanley Cup Finals appearance in 2017, but outside of that, they haven't really had a lot of success. They did win a round in 2018. It's the last time that happened. That was a year that they won the President's Trophy, and a year where I felt like of teams that had yet to win a Stanley Cup, Nashville had an excellent chance to be next. Nashville built themselves up nicely. They have tried to keep themselves in that. They made the playoffs in 2024 unexpectedly. I think that led to Barry Trotz signing some contracts in the offseason that haven't necessarily gone to plan. Their contracts you can't really trade and leaves them in a position where this summer the plan is to rearm and go for the playoffs next year. This is a team that, of course, does not have a Stanley Cup. 2017, they get all the way to the final. They meet a Pittsburgh team that's pretty darn good. And, they fell by the wayside in the final. The grade I'm giving the franchise is C+. Because I figure they're top 10 in the regular season. They were finalists in 2017. I can throw them a C+. So, looking at this team's leading scorers, again, from 2000-2001 through this year, although I do mark it as January 1st of 2001, start of the millennium, Roman Josi, 909 games played, 181 goals, 505 assists, 686 points. Josi's a fantastic defenseman. The contract may age poorly towards the end of it, but honestly, I think the contract's already aged better than expected when he signed it. There were a lot of talks about how this contract's way too much money for way too long. I think he's done all right. Philip Forsberg, 698 games played, 287 goals, 318 assists, 605 points. He, of course, came over in a pretty famous trade if you're a Nashville fan, or an infamous trade if you're a Washington fan. David Legwand, 846 games played, 191 goals, 326 assists, 517 points. Legwand, I believe the first ever Nashville player at the draft. They drafted him as their first draft pick ever. Martin Erat, who was traded for Forsberg, 723 games played, 163 goals, 318 assists, 481 points. I think it's a shame that Erat's basically remembered at this point for the fact that he was going to Washington as a part of that Forsberg deal, and that being a ripoff by Nashville of Washington, because Erat was a good player in his own right. Yes, that trade was disastrous for Washington, but Erat was a pretty good player too. Shea Weber, 763 games played, 166 goals, 277 assists, 443 points. So 2 of the top 5 scorers all time are defensemen, and we'll see 2 of the next 5 as defensemen as well. Ryan Johansson, 533 games played, 110 goals, 252 assists, 362 points. Craig Smith is on the list. Nice to see him there. 661 games, 162 goals, 168 assists for 330 points. Ryan Ellis, there's another defenseman. 562 games, 75 goals, 195 assists, 270 points. He was traded to Philly. Hasn't played for a long time. It's too bad, but Ellis basically sacrificed his body for the game he loved. Matthias Ekholm, now in Edmonton, of course, played 719 games with Nashville, 62 goals, 206 assists, 268 points. I've liked Ekholm's game for a very long time, and he's done nothing in Edmonton to change my mind on that. The fact that he's top 10 in scoring for Nashville, it really does illustrate just how important defense has been to them. J.P. Dubont in the top 10, 388 games played, 93 goals, 174 assists, 267 points. So this is a franchise that knows how to draft and develop defensemen, but it's also been pretty good with goaltenders. Pekka Rinne, record of 369, 213, and 75, a 917 save percentage, not too shabby. UC Saros, a record of 182, 119, and 32, also a 917 save percentage. So Saros Not anywhere near Rene in terms of wins, and I don't think he's going to get there, but his overall numbers have been excellent. Thomas Vokoun, 132, 110, and 37, 915 save percentage. And Chris Mason, color announcer for Nashville Broadcasts, 59, 49, and 13 record, 911 save percentage. So Mason, pretty good goaltender during his time there, but goaltending has been really a hallmark of their game. Whether it's Vokoun, Rene, Saros, they've always had a really good starting goaltender. And of course, Mike Dunham's not on the list, but Dunham was a solid goaltender for them when they came in as well. So coaches, it's a short list because Barry Trotz was there for a very long time. And Trotz being there for a long time shows that, yes, there are some teams that fire coaches that maybe they don't really need to. Barry Trotz could have, a team that had a rough season one year, they're great the next, and then they have struggles the following season, but they bounce back. There really wasn't any danger to Trotz's job, and I actually respected them for that. Peter Laviolette then became the coach after him. John Hines led this team after Laviolette was let go, and of course the current coach is Andrew Burnett. Burnett's job is one of those ones that some people really like what he's done, some people don't. Some people don't think this team's good enough for them to win anyways. It doesn't really tell you much about Burnett, but we'll see when this season's done what they do with coaching, and if Barry Trotz does decide to make some sort of change. Now, general managers, David Poile. David Poile spent many decades as a general manager in the National Hockey League and was the only general manager known by Nashville until Barry Trotz took over for him. And is there anybody else who could have taken over for David Poile? I don't know if there is, but Barry Trotz and David Poile obviously had a long relationship as general manager and coach. It makes total sense that Barry Trotz would transition into becoming a general manager via training from David Poile. So I think Nashville's in good hands. I know that the signings made this past summer haven't necessarily aged all that well. I think Trotz will get that all figured out, and I think this summer could be an interesting one for Nashville fans. Now, team captains, they've had their share of team captains. Tom Fitzgerald, the first captain and, hardworking forward, bottom six forward, and really emblematic of the play of Nashville throughout. Hard-nosed, blue-collar team that under Barry Trotz won more games than they probably had any right to. When you look at those lineups, their first, I'd say, 3 or 4 years in the NHL. Trotz got some wins out of him. Greg Johnson, the next captain, then Kimmo Timonen. Kimmo Timonen not on the board here, but another good defenseman for Nashville. Suter's not on the list either. Good defenseman for Nashville. Jason Arnott. And Arnott, of course, a forward that got better as his career went along. He was captain in Nashville. Shea Weber, captain for a nice long period of time. I even have a couple of Shea Weber jerseys with the C on the front. Mike Fisher was captain briefly. And then Roman Josi. Roman Josi becomes the captain. He will be the captain of this team until either he retires or a move gets made to move him out of town. At some point, maybe towards the end of the contract, that kind of thing. But I do think Josi probably spends his entire career in Nashville. I'd be very surprised to ever see him on the move. Nashville is a team that I did have high up as, maybe being the next one to win a Stanley Cup that hasn't before. Now I'm not as sure. That being said, of the teams that have never won a Stanley Cup, I don't know which one might be. Like, Winnipeg seems like the most obvious one, but Nashville at one point looked like the most obvious one as well. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below regarding the history of the Nashville Predators. Hit like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support as always. I will talk to you again soon.